Welcome to the Burnie Thompson Show.
The rule of law has been supplanted by the law of rulers.
America's voice of freedom.
You're a liar and a hypocrite.
Well, we seem to be a little short on brotherly love around here.
How about you enforce the current law before you talk about changing any law?
This would be a very good time for you to shut up.
Don't you know me? Don't you know that that's an impossibility, that could never happen?
It is our time to do all we can do, and it's an urgent time.
Don't you know that?
And now, Burnie Thompson, where the golden age of radio lives on.
There's something going on that I want to point out to you, and it is an incrementalism, and it has to do with Cecil the Lion, right? Cecil the Lion and the incrementalism, changing the way we think about hunting. I can hear it now, can't you? We got to change the way we think about hunting. We got to change the way we think about marriage. We got to change the way we think about how the media report the news and this kind of thing. I'm telling you that if you lift your gaze, G-A-Z-E, if you lift your, knock it off, if you lift your gaze, we're going to change the way we think about that too. But what I'm saying is, and you look ahead, you'll see that what we're talking about here is an incrementalism, a conditioning of Americans. You see, right now, what you hear are from the left especially is, it's not that we oppose the Second Amendment, right? We believe that you ought to have guns for hunting, but when it comes to hunting, you know, you can't just hunt anything, right? We believe that you can hunt if it's part of your culture. This is what I've heard lately. Think about that one. If it's part of your culture, we think that you can hunt if you need food, right? But in America, we don't need these things. You just got to go to a store, see? So even hunting is soon going to be not an acceptable reason to have guns in America. It's part of the changing the way we think about guns in America, starting with Eric Holder when he talked about brainwashing Americans, to Obama when he talks about changing the way Americans think about gun violence. I mean, you think about these things, and I'm telling you, the Cecil the Lion story is bigger than you think. I'm looking at it, and I reminisce about Edward Snowden. I told somebody Edward Snowden is going to be a bigger deal than you think. Edward Snowden's going to be a big deal. And it was, and I see the same thing with the Cecil the Lion. Cecil the Lion is not about Cecil the Lion. And by the way, did you see in Zimbabwe? You had Mugabe, right? Mugabe is, you can't make this up. Mugabe is condemning white safaris, right? Shooting Cecil the Lion. You can't do that. I mean, that's evil. While he's eating elephant on his birthday. Homie's eating elephant, talking about white safaris are evil. These guys will go out and they'll shoot a lion. But we are more civilized. And he's sitting there eating a friggin' elephant. It was like Dumbo Gumbo, right? He's eating Dumbo Gumbo, and he's complaining about the white guys hunting elephants with bows and arrows. I'm not joking. This is what we have. When you talk about topsy-turvy, hashtag topsy-turvy. I meant to do this yesterday. I was sitting with my sweet girls, 11 and 12, and we were watching the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and the animated movie. And there's a song on there I just happened to see about topsy-turvy, about how everything is upside down. And it occurred to me that it sure is. Topsy-turvy is the way I view America today. When Mugabe can condemn white safaris while he's eating an elephant, and Obama's nincompoop bobbleheads are cheering, yeah, that's wrong. Listen to Mugabe. He knows. He lives there. You mean Mugabe, the tyrant? I cannot believe we have, first of all, the irony here, right? The first black president, have you heard? He's the first black president, Obama. It was in all the papers. If you missed it, you really missed it. It was a big deal back in the day. Obama goes to Africa, tells Africans they can't have homes, cars, or air conditioning, or the planet will boil over, hangs out with tyrants who oppress black people in the world, and it's cool in the gang. It's cool in the gang to be hanging out with black tyrants who eat elephants, but just don't be a white dentist who goes on a safari. I'm not big on that either, but I also am not going to sit here and call for the guy's lynching. Are you? I'll give you the phone number, but first I want to make sure everything's working smoothly here, because I'm not entirely sure everybody's with us on Periscope. Let me check here. I'll give you the phone number, though, if you want to join me, because what I'm trying to tell you is if we don't lift our gaze, we'll miss the importance of the story. G-A-Z-E. If we don't lift it, we'll miss the story. You got to look ahead. One man's tyrant is another man's homeboy. That's exactly right, Joe Snuffy. That is a good point. And jokes are not funny around here, by the way. We have determined that they are not funny. They can get you in a lot of trouble making jokes because everything's topsy-turvy in the world now. Hashtag topsy-turvy. I love it. When you think about double speak and you think about double think, the ability to have two contradictory thoughts in your head at the same time. But the phone number, in case you want to join me, is 850-252-8260. 850-252-8260. Now, if you haven't heard, the defenders of Planned Parenthood are out in full force. They are saying that extremists are going to keep women from getting health care. All of the health care that they claim is provided by Planned Parenthood, incidentally, as, that's right, topsy-turvy, as pointed out by S. Hannity's hair on Twitter, is provided by Obamacare. So why the hell do we need Obamacare if Planned Parenthood was doing the trick? You ever think about that? But Planned Parenthood, as you and I know, is an incredibly evil organization. And certainly, I mean, first of all, if we're going to accept the premise that it should be legal to do what they do, we should all agree that they shouldn't receive taxpayer funding for it, for God's sake. They shouldn't receive taxpayer funding to do what they do. I had a discussion with a guy, there's a couple of guys lately, on Facebook. And one of them was calling, he refused to say it was a developing human being or a nascent human being or a baby in the 7th month if there's an abortion. He simply called it cells or a fetal cells, I think was his preferred term, fetal cells. And I said, it's interesting, isn't it, how fast fetal cells become baby parts when a Lamborghini is involved? Isn't that amazing? How fast fetal cells become body parts when Lamborghinis are involved. You ever notice that? I mean, immediately, boy. Oh, you need a lung? Here, we've got one for you. We're going to lift it right out of this lump of cells. It's amazing. Need an arm? Oh, yeah. Less crunchy technique. Send it right in Federal Express, right? When it absolutely positively needs to be there overnight, you just drop it right in Federal Express is what they do. Phone number here, if you want to join me, is 850-252-8260. Rand Paul, Senator, is saying that they are about 3 votes away from defunding Planned Parenthood. He says 2 votes from defunding Planned Parenthood. He said we may even get some Democrats. Can you believe that there's not enough Republicans to do this? As a matter of fact, let's listen to Rand Paul. He was on with Sean Hannity, and if you don't mind, I want to share it with you. Take a listen to this.
Apparently took a shot at you. You want to respond to him?
Means I must be doing something right when the socialists and left-wingers and the mayor of New York's going after me. But, I'm horrified by these videos, and everybody is. When I think of ultrasound, I think of the pictures of my kids before they were born and the happiness we had. To imagine that doctors are using ultrasound to manipulate the body around, turn the body around to take body parts from a baby, It sickens me. And so I've been fighting to defund Planned Parenthood. I don't think they should get any taxpayer dollars. And we got good news today. We are going to get a vote on this. The Senate will vote on defunding Planned Parenthood before we leave in August.
And will it be a 51 majority, or do you need to get cloture?
Because of the way the Senate rules are, you always have to get to 60. You almost never can do 50. And so we'll have to get to a 60-vote margin. We're going to try to keep the Republicans together.
How is it difficult to get 60 votes to defund Planned Parenthood, $500 million, damn it? I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're a Republican. You can't hear it. Son of a gun. Okay, here, we're gonna do this again. I really want you to hear this.
Apparently took a shot at you. You want to respond to him?
Means I must be doing something right when the socialists and left-wingers and the mayor of New York's going after me. But, I'm horrified by these videos, and everybody is. When I think of ultrasound, I think of the pictures of my kids before they were born and the happiness we had. To imagine that doctors are using ultrasound to manipulate the body around, turn the body around to take body parts from a baby, it sickens me. And so I've been fighting to defund Planned Parenthood. I don't think they should get any taxpayer dollars. And we got good news today. We are going to get a vote on this. The Senate will vote on defunding Planned Parenthood before we leave in August.
Will it be a 51 majority, or do you need to get cloture?
Because of the way the Senate rules are, you always have to get to 60. You almost never can do 50. And so we'll have to get to a 60-vote margin. We're going to try to keep the Republicans together. And there's at least 3 or 4 Democrats that we think we have a chance of getting. That gets us close. We're up to about 58 then. So we're going to work very hard. I think there are some pro-choice Democrats. There are many pro-choice Americans who are horrified by this because they don't think of abortion as turning the baby around and harvesting baby parts and showing kidneys and livers and lungs and hearts that are then being resold. The gruesomeness of this cannot be overstated. And I think we may well get some Democrats who are going to say enough's enough. We can't keep funding a group that does this.
There are at least 3 or 4 laws that I believe will have been violated. It is against the law to harvest tissue or body parts of aborted fetuses. And you hear in these videos, oh, well, we'll crush the baby here so we can preserve the lungs and the heart and the liver. So that, to me, my interpretation is that is against the law. It is against the law to manipulate the abortion procedure for the purpose of harvesting body parts. And similarly, you cannot have medical professionals knowing that they're being harvested. All of those laws, my interpretation of those tapes is they broke them, yet the Attorney General is looking into this group that got the undercover videos, but not Planned Parenthood. Do you think the Justice Department ought to be looking into this?
Absolutely, but I think there's another question here, too. Do you think when these young women are signing a consent for their procedure, they know that they're signing a consent that their baby's body parts will be sold? I'm guessing that when you go in to have an abortion, they're saying that this consent is for the procedure, and I really wonder if the women know that the baby's kidneys and liver and heart are going to be sold off.
Well, we had a representative on that used to work for them and said that she felt the people were being manipulated and not told the whole truth about what was going to happen.
I think the whole story is going to come forward. I'm happy we're going to have a vote in the Senate, and we're going to try to take away every last penny of taxpayer dollars. People have to realize this has nothing to do with women's health. We have community health centers that provide all kinds of women's health. There is $5 billion being spent in the community health centers, and everything that's done at Planned Parenthood is done in a community health center except for abortion. There's no reason to have any federal money going to Planned Parenthood.
And, of course, they're making money. As that one woman said on the tape, she wants to buy a Lamborghini. Let me play for you a black Democrat, Ohio State representative, slamming Planned Parenthood, wondering, where do Black Lives Matter here? Watch this.
What business is it of yours, Mr. Batman, that 56 million unborn? It is my business, especially when 17 million of them are black women. 17 million, more than any other population. 17 million that look and act and talk and with needs similar to myself, but even more than that, they're Americans and they're human beings. You hear a lot of demonstrations across the country now about Black Lives Matter. Well, they skip one place. They should be in front of Planned Parenthood.
Senator, a big part of your campaign has been outreach to the minority communities, historically black colleges, for example.
This is Sean Hannity's interview with Senator Rand Paul, who says they are about 2 votes away from defunding Planned Parenthood. I can't believe what I'm seeing right now in America. And I can't believe it just because I can't believe Americans, especially white Americans, are so stupid. Honestly, white Americans are dumb, especially white Democrats. They are about the dumbest group of people I've ever seen in my life. I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. I've debated 2 of them lately, okay? One of them's name is Todd, and Todd says that Dr. Ben Carson is psycho and, psycho and crazy and all of this stuff. To which, of course, I said, what are you, racist? Yeah, I've always wanted to be able to do that. I just threw it out there. What are you, some kind of racist? I mean, to him, Dr. Ben Carson is a psycho crazy person, all right? But Obama's normal guy, right? Mr. Smart guy. You Africans can't have cars, can't have air conditioning, can't have homes because the planet will boil over. And Ben Carson's the nut? Are you crazy? This kind of stuff I have to deal with white Democrats. White Democrats, I've decided, are the stupidest people ever. I've decided this. We had Obama's guy, I forget what his name is. He's the head of diversity for the FCC. And he one time famously said, there are some really good white people in America. To which I said, where? I'm looking for good white people in America, and I'm having trouble finding them, to be honest with you. Okay, so I look at, in Zimbabwe, you've got Mugabe, right, saying that white safaris are evil, shooting Cecil like that with a bow and arrow. This is Mugabe in Zimbabwe. So Mugabe's sitting there, and he's eating elephant on his birthday. Was it his birthday the same as mine? Oh, snap, let's check it out. Was Mugabe also born on July 29? We got to find out here. Things you got to know. Let's see. Why don't we just do this? Google. Why not? I'll let them watch me this time, right? Because I'm looking up Mugabe. Maybe they'll think I like Mugabe and they'll leave me alone. Meaning the Obama administration. Mugabe bio. Let's see. Robert Mugabe. He's the prime minister of Zimbabwe, and he's not happy that white people are shooting lions. He says it's just awful as he eats his Dumbo Gumbo. Now, you think about that. There's Mugabe. Let's see. Born, so it's an old picture. He was born February 21st. Let's see. Okay. So they found an older picture of him eating elephant as he recently criticized white safaris. You know, white people are evil, you know. These white dentists from America, man, they'll shoot a lion. And Mugabe doesn't give a flip if he oppresses black people. He doesn't care if he kills white farmers. None of that. But if he can get over on dumb white Democrats, I'm all about race today. I wore a black shirt. I'm gonna just be all about it today, like everybody else in America. For one day, I want to see the world through race. I never do, but today might be the day. I'm just gonna start looking at the world through race and the lens of race. And so far, I'm seeing dumbass Democrats. That's what I'm seeing more than anything else. DADs is what I'd like to designate them, because I'm seeing a lot of them recently. The intellectual gymnastics that Democrats today will do to support Barack Obama is unbelievable. No amount of damage to black people will stop white Democrats from supporting Barack Obama. It is in-friggin-sane. Do you know that Barack Obama has done more damage to black people in the world, and especially in America, in the whole wide world? Do you remember the lady who spoke for West Pittman? Remember? She went up there and she said she doesn't want any drinking at all because drinking will mess you up. Remember, she got up there and she said, hey, Miss Sarah Moon, I see you too now. Did Periscope notify you, or did I have to notify you? I think there's something going on that not everybody was notified about segment 1. Just a feeling I have. Just a feeling that I have. But what I'm talking about, in case you're just joining us, is dumbass white Democrats. That's what I'm talking about, because they'll do anything. I mean, they will do an intellectual gymnastics routine to support Barack Obama, as Barack Obama hurts black Americans more than anybody. Okay, here's how Obama hurts black people. First of all, he says that Planned Parenthood is for women's health procedures, when really what they're doing is snuffing out the lives of nascent, developing black babies. More than anything else, proportionately. So you've got Planned Parenthood. It used to be bad enough when they just aborted little black babies. Now they actually rip the body parts out and ship them. As Rand Paul just pointed out, they're about 2 votes away from defunding Planned Parenthood, but you've got enough people, and there are protests going on. Democrats are protesting, and the president of Planned Parenthood, the president of Planned Parenthood is saying, we will not back down to extremists. Extremists being you and me, who think it's wrong to use an ultrasound to turn the body of a 7 or 8 month old fetus around and then rip its heart out. And we're the extremists. Now remember, the move by the Obama administration, I've told you this before, this all works together. The Obama administration is working very, very hard to conflate extremists with terrorists. They're the same. Extremists is what Obama calls them. And you and I are now an extremist because we oppose Planned Parenthood's destruction of more proportionately developing black lives than white lives. So developing black lives don't matter, evidently. They don't give a flip about them, is what I'm trying to say. They don't. And now Obama's Justice Department is investigating the people who are releasing the videos, not Planned Parenthood? Is that insane? I mean, that is topsy-turvy, right? Hashtag topsy-turvy. America is topsy-turvy right now. Do you agree with that? Hashtag topsy-turvy is what we need to start. You and me explaining how America is upside down, or inverted. Our values are inverted by this perverted Democrat Party right now. And the Republican Party is not as perverted as it is damn greedy. Because they want to stay in office no matter what. The Republicans have, look at Steve Sutherland. Steve Sutherland is the worst example I've ever seen, or the best example I've ever seen, about how somebody could fall. You talk about the great fall. Steve Sutherland is the great fall. A guy who wears Jesus on his sleeve. And he ended up going there and voting for this and still defends it. He still defends his vote for Planned Parenthood and John Boehner and funding ISIS. I mean, you talk about the ability to excuse your own behavior because you are absolutely intolerant to criticism. Somebody who refuses to listen anymore. I mean, it's what the Republicans have done to fund Planned Parenthood. This is not the Republican Party that I ever knew. Could you imagine Ronald Reagan, Jack Kemp, Barry Goldwater, any good Republican, damn it, could you imagine any of them supporting the destruction of developing babies in the 6th month? They use ultrasounds not to determine if it's a boy or a girl, but to turn it so they could get its little, that they could destroy it and take its liver or its lungs or its kidneys and drop it in an envelope and send it off in Federal Express. And Obama says we're the extremists? Topsy-turvy. It's an inverted world to a perverted bunch of people and to a bunch of Republicans who have lost. You talk about, I'll tell you what, if you look closely, this may have happened to John Boehner. They may have extracted his spine because John Boehner's spineless. I'll bet you when John Boehner was a developing human being, they took out his spine. And they probably have been doing this back at least since John Boehner was an infant. Would you agree? They probably, if you look, I'll bet you if you do an X-ray on John Boehner, there's no spine. I don't know what holds him up. I don't know. But, they've got a lot of advances in medicine these days, and maybe he's got some sort of a brace. But he's got no spine, this son of a gun. I almost said it. I got to be careful. I almost said that. I mean, I can, and the FCC doesn't have any rules against it. I just think it's improper for me to start throwing out profanities like that. But I'll tell you, it's very difficult for me not to. Very, very difficult. Yeah, that's a really good point. They may have taken those. John Boehner may have none of those and no spine. Best I can tell, the odds are in our favor that he doesn't. They flip the tortilla on us, but have spatula ready to tip it back. I'll tell you what, we do. So John Boehner and the Republicans have sold their souls to the perverted Democrats. You think about how bad that is in America. How could you sell your soul to Democrats like this? This is, I mean, you think about a time in the world that it should be easy to overcome. You have Democrat. I mean, it's to me it would have been difficult to overcome Tip O'Neill. At least he was an American first, or JFK. I agreed with JFK on some things, but now you've got Mugabe's homeboy from Illinois. He's Lincoln's homeboy. Yes, he is too. He said he was. He said, Lincoln's my homeboy from Illinois. And if the president can say it, damn it, I can say it too. But Mugabe's up there saying, I can't believe these white safaris are shooting Cecil the lion as though Mugabe gave a flip about lions. You think Mugabe cares about lions? And he's eating an elephant. Pictures of Mugabe eating an elephant. Dude is slurping up Dumbo Gumbo, complaining about white safaris. And we have dumbass white Democrats who actually buy this stuff. They're known as nincompoop bobbleheads. And let's go to the phones. And Patrick. Hey, Patrick, welcome to the show.
Hey, good afternoon to you, Bernie. I'm really glad that Rand Paul was talking about that subject and that they are going to hold a vote on that. Planned Parenthood has proven themselves, even before this happened, to me it was an evil organization to begin with. And I try not to interject religion into political discussion too often, but in this particular case I will a little bit. But one of the things that I think that we've been suffering from in this country is turning our backs on God. And I think there's going to be a price to pay for that. And where abortion is concerned, I do believe religiously that it is murder, but that is not even the argument that I present against abortion, because I understand that not everybody is religious and believes what I believe. But I believe it is indeed a liberty issue. When that DNA is formed, you've got yourself a human. It's not a pine tree, it's not a banana, and it's not a Camaro. That's a human, and that's all it can be. At that point in time, I consider that endowed by its creator, or by nature, if you prefer, to the right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to take that away, I think should be against the law, not just on religious terms, but on liberty terms.
I'm going to give you a constitutional argument to support your case. You're going to love this. Are you ready for this? The preamble to the Constitution says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and here we go, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. What is a developing human being in the womb? A fetus, if you will, a baby, if you will, but we know that if you leave it alone, it's going to be born, and it's a human being. Like you said, it's not going to be. I've never seen a woman give birth to a Camaro, and I know there's a first for everything, Patrick, but I haven't seen it. So what else is that but our posterity?
Yeah, that's a very fine argument in my view, and I will try, just for the sake of fun, to form an argument against. But standing where I am right now today, I don't know that I can do that.
Yep. Patrick, thanks for a great call. Patrick says, and this is where we should always be if we want to stand on what I consider truth and liberty, that it is a liberty issue first. And if the proper role of government is to protect people, or at least, sort of stand against the encroachment, the violence, the initiation of violence against citizens, against humans, right? That's what government's for, to prevent force and fraud. And why can we not make a liberty constitutional argument that at the very least a developing human being in the womb probably deserves the same protection, the initiation of violence. And if you don't think it's violent to use an ultrasound to turn the body of this developing person around in the 6th or 7th month so that you can crush it and then have it angled just right to get its heart and liver, well, who's the extremist, right? And so right now we've got probably more Americans upset about Cecil the Lion. And what I want to tell you about Cecil the Lion, shift our gaze, it is the first giant step to change the way we feel about hunting, to change the perception of hunting in the United States. Listen, it's not that we're against hunting. We think people ought to be able to hunt for food. They ought to be able to hunt according to their culture. But, in America, we have stores. There's no reason to hunt. And if you give in and say, yes, it's wrong to hunt a lion, you have no basis left, do you, for saying that it is also wrong to hunt Bambi. You give me an argument that says it is okay to hunt Bambi, but not a lion. I could actually give a better argument that it's okay to hunt a lion instead of Bambi, because hunting a lion is a dangerous proposition, especially with a bow and arrow. In any way, actually. It's more dangerous than hunting a deer. Would you agree or no? And this is the first step in changing the way we think about gay marriage, changing the way we think about democracy, changing the way we think about the economy, changing the way we think about gay marriage, hunting, whatever it is. This is just the first big giant step. Cecil the Lion is a pivot point. I'm telling you, he is. I can see these things. I'm like that kid from the movie, The Sixth Sense. I see dead people. I see what's coming politically, and I see that. Do you agree? Do you think it is? Doesn't make me feel good to think of Cecil being shot. What was he, 12 years old, 13 years old, something like that? Now, they only live about usually 15 years or so, because a younger male lion will beat the crap out of it and kill an older male lion. I mean, that's kind of what their culture. Lions do that to each other. Lions kill each other. But, this isn't about that. This is about changing the way we think about hunting, because then what do you need guns to hunt for? We have stores. See? You don't need to hunt in America. As a matter of fact, it's primitive. And we need to look forward and change the way we think about all this kind of stuff, because only Republicans want to do this stuff. Only these extremist white Republicans, and they're dangerous. Oftentimes war veterans even. These are bad guys. When we have a Justice Department in the United States of America investigating journalists and citizen journalists or Planned Parenthood that is selling human body parts, we have a topsy-turvy United States of America. Am I right or am I wrong? We'll be right back in just a minute on myfreedomradio.com. Also on YouTube today, I believe, on YouTube at My Freedom Radio, one word, and of course on Periscope. We'll be right back for segment 2. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Burnie Thompson Show. Stay tuned. More of you and Burnie straight ahead.
The Burnie Thompson Show is brought to you by Forest Park Animal Hospital. He's more than just a vet for your pet. He's your dog's best friend. Dr. Stephen Favillaro, on Facebook at Forest Park Animal Hospital, PA.
respected by the law of rulers.
America's voice of freedom.
You're a liar and a hypocrite. Well, we seem to be a little short on brotherly love around here.
How about you enforce the current law before you talk about changing any law?
This would be a very good time for you to shut up.
Don't you know me? Don't you know that that's an impossibility, that could never happen?
It is our time to do all we can do, and it's an urgent time.
Don't you know that?
And now, Burnie Thompson, where the golden age of radio lives on.
All right, I don't think we have 30 million viewers right now, so I almost just want to wait until we get 30 million viewers, because what I'm going to share with you is something 30 million Americans need to hear. It really is. And so I may just linger and play with my new toy that I got. It's not a toy, as I would tell my girls. This is a tool, right? And I got this for my birthday last night, and I love it. It is, I'm just going to linger until we get 30 million people. I'm not going to talk about the important stuff. But this thing right here is so cool. Isn't this awesome? Miss Sarah Moon got this for me. I've always wanted one of these. This is a Swiss Army knife, and it's got the coolest little things on here. Look at this. See these scissors here? These things work. I mean, these things, watch this. You can even hear it. Listen to this. I mean, is that incredible? Now, these kind of tools are used for camping. This particular one, I want you to look this up. Do you have a minute? I'm not going to go on until we get 30 million people, so you might as well start sharing and inviting everybody to join us. Invite everybody you know to join us, because what I'm going to share with you about politics is so important that we need to save this republic, and we can't do it with a smattering of folks, as Obama might say, right? We need lots of people. So in the meantime, while you're inviting other, and I'm serious about this, damn it, we're 30 million people away from saving this republic, and that's the good news. The bad news is we're 30 million people away. But anyway, back to this Swiss Army knife. This is the field version. Do me a favor. Go on Amazon.com and look up. They actually call them now Victorinox. It's spelled like this. You're going to love this. And some of you guys on here are nerds like me, and you like this kind of stuff. Victorinox is what they call it. Field Army knife. And you look at how many stars it gets. Here's how it's spelled. Victorinox Field Army knife. Look this up on Amazon. You're going to love this. And it's like, I don't know, like 500 people commented on this. And it got 5 out of 5 stars, this particular model here. And I am now the proud owner of this thing, and I love it. Babe, I haven't let this go. I slept with this in my hand last night. It's like when I was young and I used to get a new pair of basketball shoes, right? I'd put them up on my TV and I'd look at them. I'd look at the basketball shoes all night until I fell asleep and until I woke up. I'm the same way. I'm like a little boy like that. Even though I'm now a year older, I feel so young because I got one of these. The Victorinox Army, you're going to love it, the field knife. So, but these things are really, really cool because you can cut paper with them. You can saw with them. Oh, you ready to see the saw? The saw is off the chain. Look at this. Wow. That right there. Now, here's the cool thing, though. This, I can saw branches. I can saw wood. But do you know what abortionists use this stuff for? It is so sick what these people do. And we're being called the extremists. Now, I just showed you what I could do. This paper, this thing is so amazing. Look at it. Wow. I mean, it works so good. These Swiss Army knives are really made great. But, you know, when I tell you what they're doing in Planned Parenthood, you're going to be nauseated. But you need to know, because you and I, this was my birthday gift yesterday. One more time, Victorinox. That's what they call Swiss Army knives now. Victorinox field knife, the field Swiss Army knife. If you want to look it up, you won't believe it. Amazon, the users gave it a 5 out of 5. You don't see that. You might get 4.5 out of 5. somebody's going to screw things up and give it a 0, right? 5 out of 5. It's unbelievable. Best one out there, the field knife. And could you imagine if everything that we bought was like Uber? I'm going to go back to what's happening in a minute, but I want to tell you about Uber. See, we have different ways we can decide what we want to buy. One way is with a customer satisfaction rating. I like that way. Another way is if bureaucrats give it a rating system. Bureaucrats. So that you've got an A trust customer satisfaction ratings, or would you trust a bureaucrat rating system? What do you think could possibly go wrong with a bureaucrat rating system? Do you think, I don't know, maybe people would start getting paid off? Do you think it would become a political rating system instead of a quality rating system? Lickety split. Now, lickety split is another word that we need to start hashtagging. It means fast. What do you think it meant? No, topsy-turvy. Lickety split means very fast is what it means. Lickety split is another one, because we can fix this economy, for example. Lickety split if we would just get the damn government and bureaucrats and politicians out of the way. If we would cure this national ailment we have known as cronyism. Cronyism is the bubonic plague of economics, and we need to excise it. Okay, we need to do to cronyism what Planned Parenthood is doing to developing human beings. We need to cut it out, put it in a Federal Express envelope, and send it out. Going upside down, lickety split, not slip. There we go. And that just means fast is all it means. But we're topsy-turvy in America. We're in a time and a place where you and I are called extremists by our government. We are at a time and a place where the Justice Department, which is really the Injustice Department, is investigating the citizen journalists who are exposing Planned Parenthood. They're investigating them. Now, you saw what they did to Dinesh D'Souza. Understand that if they can turn Dinesh D'Souza into a political prisoner, into Obama's political prisoner, they can turn any of us into a political prisoner. Don't forget that. That's what makes this reporting, this sting of Planned Parenthood, very, very dangerous today. The First Amendment doesn't mean jack in America anymore, because the Obama administration and Republicans, like my former Congressman Steve Sutherland, they will vote against it. They will. One of the first votes in the first year of my former representative, they voted to make it a felony to protest the president if you're protesting outside of his Secret Service protest zones. You cannot protest Obama if you are not inside the Secret Service protest zone if you are in proximity of him. Now, why did I not say close proximity? Does anybody know? I didn't say close proximity because proximity, you ready for this? Don't forget this. You'll love this. Proximity means closeness. So if you hear somebody say in close proximity, what they are really saying is in close closeness. That's what they're saying. So they're confusing the word proximity with vicinity. See, so it's proximity. You don't want to go around saying close proximity unless you would go around saying close closeness. Now, here is what happened at Planned Parenthood. This is the latest sting, okay? And the Obama administration is going to try to quell this, right? There's a doctor at Planned Parenthood. She's the medical director for Planned Parenthood. And her name is Dr. Savita Ginde, 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 something like that. And I'm trying, I really want to get it right. I don't want to slaughter her name. You know, I want to treat her name with more respect than she treats babies. And if you don't think they're babies, like Hank on Facebook. I have a guy named Hank that debates me on my Facebook page, and he calls them fetal cells. Now, fetal cells look remarkably like baby parts when Lamborghinis are involved. Okay, when there's a Lamborghini involved, we got a lung. We've got some kidneys we can pull right out of these fetal cells. Have you ever seen it? You got a little petri dish, you pull out the fetal cells, and voila, there's a leg. So, doctor, if you can call her a doctor, about as much as you can call Dr. Mengele a doctor. Who knows Dr. Mengele? Do you know the reference to Dr. Mengele? He's the son of a mother Nazi who would torture human beings. They do this in North Korea now, by the way. Kim Jong-un and his dad, Kim Jong-il, who passed away, thankfully, these guys are some of the most sadistic so-and-sos you ever saw in your life. And Mengele was like that. And so is this piece of trash human being. Savita Ginde. You want to know what she did? She said, she's caught on video now, and she's saying, look, we have got to make sure we call this research. Words are important, right? We've got to call this research, not business. I know we're selling the parts, but call it research. And then she casually reaches over and pokes around at a aborted baby, a fetus, if you will, and says, oh, it's a boy. She said, oh, it's a boy. No word yet if they passed around cigars. I don't know about that. No. She says cigars are dangerous to your health. All right? So you can't have cigars to celebrate it's a boy. She did this. In fact, it's trending now on Twitter. It's a boy. This woman should have this attached to her for the rest of her life. Just like Steve Sutherland will have it attached to him, because I'm gonna mention him again. He voted to fund this. He went to Congress in 2010 as my friend. He now won't even shake my hand. He voted for this, and he won't shake my hand. Did you think about that for 2 minutes? I bumped into him on a campus, and he put his hands behind his back and said, I'm not going to shake your hand anymore, Bernie. He did this about a year and a half ago. I'm not shaking your hand anymore. Here's what he said in front of students. I was going to give a speech on the Constitution, and I bumped into him. And so I did the right thing, just like, look, a handshake is a social gesture, right? It's sort of like in the military, it's sort of like a salute. It's just a way to acknowledge each other and to show respect. Well, when I extended my hand to shake Steve Sutherland's hand, he put his hands behind his back and said, I only shake hands with my friends, and Bernie, you're no friend of mine. And he was mad at me because I was telling him to take his name off of that law that that bill he was trying to pass, that he co-sponsored to put illegal aliens in the U.S. military, and also for voting on to fund Planned Parenthood. He wouldn't shake my hand because I called him out on it. He will not suffer criticism. He's gone now. He's got unelected. He thought about running again. He just yesterday or the day before bowed out. But he funded these so-and-sos, these vile human beings, and it should stain him forever. And it should stain this Dr. Savita Ginde or whatever, however you pronounce her name, forever. It says, this is a Fox News story, but it'll be everywhere, except the places that won't report it, I suppose. And I guess there are havens of journalistic malpractice that we know of. So Dr. Savita Ginde discussing the importance of couching the harvesting of fetal tissue by calling it research instead of business, because she's opposed to business. This vile human being says business is evil, but reaching in and using an ultrasound to manipulate the position of the body inside the womb, and then crushing it, and then you take out the little lungs and livers and kidneys. It's amazing how much it looks like a body part, and then you make some money on it and drive the coolest car you can get. And we're the extremists. You can't talk about these things. God, that's just grotesque. The gratuitous nature of these talk shows They are extremists. That's what my friend Todd from Santa Monica just said. He just called us extremists. He said Dr. Ben Carson is, quote, friggin' psycho. Ben Carson. That's what Todd in Santa Monica, who looks just like me, right? He is endowed with white privilege. I mean, white privilege drips off this cat, Todd in Santa Monica, my old buddy. Todd in Santa Monica, boy, he's got as much white privilege on him as I do. But he says Ben Carson is, quote, friggin' psycho, to which I wrote back on Facebook, hey, Todd, are you okay? And then I got this idea. I've always wanted to do it. Then I said, hey, Todd, are you some kind of racist? I've always wanted to do. So I just threw that out there and watch him get all scared. No, I'm not a racist. My best friend is black. Give me a friggin' break. Good Lord. By the way, it is unbelievable, isn't it? Ben Carson's a quote, friggin' psycho to Todd in Santa Monica, but Obama's cool in the gang. You think about that while you're making breakfast in the and tell me that's not nuts. Wow, look at that. A fisherman on a paddleboard catches a Goliath grouper. Do you know how big a Goliath grouper is? It's a fish. I'm looking at these stories. It's a fish about the size of a Volkswagen. You remember the Volkswagens? I've driven one time. My mom had one for a while. Yellow. I drove a yellow Volkswagen one time. I had to get to a basketball game and my car was broken. I was in my 20s and I played in a league basketball game. So I drove in this Volkswagen like 30 miles in Southern California to get to a basketball game. I really did. My knees were up above my shoulders in this Volkswagen. I did. I really did. I looked like Ichabod Crane, if you've ever heard the story of the Headless Horseman. I mean, I still had my head on me, but my knees were above my shoulders, and I was driving like this, trying to shift gears. And it was something, man. It was, but it's about the size of this fish. Wow. I almost want to hear this story. It's unbelievable. I got to remember. I got to write this down because I want to see this when the time is right and the mood is proper, which may not be right now. So Goliath, it's on foxnews.com. Goliath grouper, fisherman on a paddleboard caught him. How do you do that on paddleboard? I one time saw a shark being reeled up by a fisherman, and a Goliath grouper, bit the shark, swallowed it, and brought it right down. That's how big these things are. Paddleboard caught a Goliath grouper. There's a video of this. This is awesome. Makes a mammoth catch, it says. I'm just going to write this down so later on I can watch it. Right now, I'll just talk about it long enough to lose everybody. I told you to start this segment. We need 3 million people. 30 million people. And before we really are going to make the kind of difference that we need to make to save this republic. And I don't think we got up to that, but I may have just lost 3 million talking about this as long as I have. But that's all right. I don't mind. Goliath grouper. All right. This is the big trending story, though. By the way, do you know what? Who know this? I'm going to give a book away. I'm going to give away this. This 10 Great Economic Myths by Murray Rothbard. This is what I'm giving away today. Jeff won one of these already. This is going to be the question. If you know the answer, you'll win it. It has to do with Africa, because Africa's in right now. Obama just got back, went there, lectured them about democracy, and said that if he were to run for a third term, could you imagine being on TV saying, if I ran for a third term, which is against the law? That would be like me saying, if I were to sell drugs, I think I'd be the best. He said, if I were to break the law, run for a third term. He didn't say, if I could, if we had third terms. He said, if I ran for a third term, I'd win. That's what he said in Africa. But anyway, so speaking of Africa, and of course in Zimbabwe, we now have a picture of Mugabe, right? We have a picture of Mugabe, and he is eating elephant. And while he's eating elephant, he's talking about how bad white safaris are, because they hunt lions, these bad white people like Mugabe. Who thinks really Mugabe gives a flip about lions? Do you think Mugabe and Cecil get along? It's topsy-turvy. in America, topsy-turvy. Mugabe. Now, speaking of these names, did you hear? Do you know who Desmond Tutu is? Desmond Tutu, he was wasn't he the Prime Minister of South Africa when Reagan was in office, right? And Reagan had a visit with Desmond Tutu, with Premier Tutu, and when he got back, the American press, the news reports, they asked him. This is a true story, by the way. They asked Reagan how his meeting went with Tutu, to which Reagan replied, "So-so." It's what Reagan, I swear to God, Reagan said it was so-so. Now, did you ever hear, though, what Mugabe said to Tutu? Mugabe in the 80s asked Tutu, what kind of name is Trump? No, he didn't. I don't think that happened. The first story really did happen, but not the second story. But the big story is that Planned Parenthood, being funded by Republicans and Democrats, now we're getting video after video that the Obama administration says we need to stop. So they've got the Justice Department now doing investigating the citizen journalists who are releasing these videos. And the latest video has the medical director of Planned Parenthood talking about how we've got to camouflage our, what we do. Call it research, because we need the money. We need more of that money is coming in from Congress. And don't call it business. Like, sure, we're selling it, and we're using ultrasounds. How many of you have experience with an ultrasound? Aren't they awesome? I mean, an ultrasound is amazing. And now they use ultrasounds to manipulate, to turn the little lump of cells around so that they can crush it just right. They don't want it to be too crunchy. And then they can take out the liver or the kidneys, right? And then sell it for the nicest wheels they can get. But this works out. This works out for the politicians who get funded so they can ride home with spinners as well. The Republicans, man, these guys, I cannot tell you how disappointed I am. I never thought when I went to Washington, D.C. in 2009 with Steve Sutherland, it was September 12th. September 11th, we drove up there. September 12th, we went to the Million Man March. And it was 1 million people there, actually, with the Glenn Beck thing. And September 11th and 12th of 2009. And Steve Sutherland was trying to decide. I was trying to talk him into running for Congress. And he decided to do it. And we got him elected. Right? And he and I were like blood brothers for liberty, man. We talked about restoring this republic. I've got my role. He's got his role. And we were going to do all we could. You know what Steve told me that night? He said, Bernie, there's 3 things every man needs. I used to write notes when he would talk. I respected him so much. And he was a praying man. Not a praying mantis, a praying man. Anyway, he told me there's 3 things that every man needs. He said a king to worship, meaning his God. I knew what he meant by that. A heavenly father. A woman to love, and a hill to die on. This is what he told me. He said every man, and if you're an alpha male like me, if you're a girly man, then you may not get this. If you're Todd from Santa Monica, I'm sure Todd from Santa Monica won't get what I'm about to say. Maybe there's a distinction. Do you notice that that beta males tend to be Democrats and alpha males tend to not be? I'm noticing something right now as I talk. I think it's just anecdotal. It's not something I can quantify, but just from looking around, I think this is true. Would you agree with that? Remember when Al Gore ran against George Bush? Now I don't think Bush was a very good president, but you got to admit he was the alpha, right? But in fact, Al Gore was so beta. He was such a girly man. This is honest to God truth. Al Gore went to a feminist to tell him how to dress like an alpha male. What's her name again? Who remembers the name of her? She was kind of a good-looking lady at the time. She was, as far as feminists go, okay? I don't notice it. I read an article that she was one of the better-looking feminists. Who was it? Naomi Wolf. Wasn't it Naomi Wolf? It was Naomi Wolf. And is that right? Is that the right name? Will somebody check this out for me? And she got Al Gore dressing in earth tones. So he had to wear more browns and blue. And then he actually walked up next to Bush, real close to Bush, like Alan Boyd would do when a citizen would ask a question. He'd walk right up to you and try to intimidate you. But I've noticed this about, but I really do believe that Steve Sutherland said something that resonated with me. That why did God make you you? Why are we here? I think we're here to make the world a little bit better. When one of us passes away, right? Wouldn't it be nice for people to say, I'll tell you what, it was a little bit better when he was around. We lost, and there are people we've lost that we can say that about. The world is just not quite as good as it was when she was still with us. And isn't that the kind of mark we want to leave? Or do you want to see how much stuff you can collect? I'm all about it, man. If you can get a lot of stuff, if you can make a fortune, God bless you. I'm just saying, make a bigger difference than you make a fortune, right? And if you make a big enough difference, can't you make a great fortune? When you go, are people going to say, what a great person, look how much stuff he had? Or are they going to say, look how much he gave? And you can give more than stuff. Some of the best things I've ever received have been out of the mouths of guys like Dennis Prager. But Sutherland told me that, and it stuck with me. It resonated with me. That's why I'm so upset about him. Because he said that to me before he ran. He said, Bernie, you and I are going to link arms, man. We're going to do all we can. I'll be in Congress. You'll be on the microphone, and we're going to do this together. And he didn't. He didn't do it. He sold out. He sold out, and he became buddies with John Boehner. I've shown Miss Sarah Moon some of the most intimate text exchanges early on between my former representative and me, and emails, and they're pretty powerful. And to know that he went astray the way he did, it reinforces my theory about, does Congress or money or power change a person, or does it magnify who somebody already is? Think about that. You ever hear somebody say, if you win if you win the lottery, it just changes people. They made millions of dollars and it changed them. I don't think it changed them. I think it magnified or brought out who that person really was at his core. That's right, Glory, that's right. Men and women will disappoint. And that is, of course, a biblical piece of wisdom there, which is why Thomas Jefferson said this. You ready for this wonderful quote by Jefferson? There are some great quotes at the beginning of this pocket constitution that I mailed Jan. And one of them is from Thomas Jefferson. And please hear what Jefferson said. As my little, my youngest daughter, says some awesome things. And when she was younger, when she was about 6, she's 11 now. When she was 6, instead of saying listen, she would say, hear this. She's the same one who would talk about eye bulbs instead of eyeballs when she was about 3 and 4. And I never corrected her because it was so dang cute. I figured she'll say eyeballs the rest of her life, but for now, please let her keep saying eye bulbs. Right? Isn't that great? But she would say, now hear this. Daddy, hear this. Not listen. Hear this. So hear this. This is Thomas Jefferson, and it has to do with what Glory just said. Men and women will let us down. In questions of power, then, let no more be heard of confidence in man, but bind him down from mischief by the chains of the Constitution. Bind him down from mischief. In other words, you don't have the authority to do that. So whether we trust him or don't trust him, he doesn't have the authority to do that. I'll tell you another great quote. Are you ready for another really good one? Do you want one more? Elisha's here? Great. Oh, man, Elisha, we've been waiting for you. I've just been reading a book, man, until you got here. Nothing, we haven't done anything. It's okay, now I've got a half hour left in the show, and now we can get started. I've lingered until you got here, baby. Elisha Cruz, the Black Courage. At I Am Cruz. So glad to have you. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. But Glory just mentioned that men and women will let us down in this world. And I just quoted Thomas Jefferson from this version of the Pocket Constitution. And Jefferson said, in questions of power, then, let no more be heard of confidence in man, but bind him down from mischief by the chains of the Constitution. This document limits what they can do. Now, here's another one. I want to share one more with you because it's a very, very good one. The Constitution, if you wonder what it is, right? It is a limiting document. It limits what the federal government can do. It doesn't tell us what rights we have. Our rights are innumerable. We can do anything provided it doesn't hurt anybody else. This is the way we were made because the God who gave us life gave us what? Liberty at the same time. Another quote from Jefferson, but I buy it, don't you? Inherent in our humanity is liberty. And so we created government so that people wouldn't infringe and encroach upon our liberty. And liberty is distinguished from freedom how? How is liberty? You're going to love this one, Elisha. You're going to love this. By the way, I said a word earlier that I thought you would dig. What was the word that I said recently that I said Elisha would appreciate? Hey, there's Clay Musgrave. A charter of negative rights. You know, he actually was right about that, but the way he twisted it was wrong. A charter of negative rights. In other words, it's a charter that limits the power of government, but doesn't negate our rights. As a matter of fact, the Ninth Amendment says that, right? The Ninth Amendment says what? The Ninth Amendment says the listing or the enumeration, not the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights, right? Just because it lists some rights, shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. It negates government power. Exactly right. This is our rule book to the government. This is like our Bible to the government. See, the Bible tells us what we can and can't do. The Constitution tells the government what it can and can't do. This is not our rule book, Jack. This is the government's rule book. We're like God to the government. We created the government. We stand above the government. We lord over the government. The government doesn't lord over us. God gave us rights. We gave the government power. Does the government have any rights? No. Why does the government not have any rights? Because we can't grant rights to each other. We're not the Lord. The best we can do is grant power, delegate power. See, we can do that. All right, we agree, and we're going to codify it into law that you can do this, this, and this. We can delegate power, but we can't give rights to anybody because we're not the Lord, right? I mean, some people might think they can do stuff like that, but they can't. Not by right, by might. They might try, but that's not going to last forever. Thank you, Glory. Actually, I need to be like JC, right? Can I get an amen? If you like it, let me know you like it because it's a big deal. These are very important concepts for us to understand, and these are the kinds of concepts that our children are not getting anymore. This is what I'm talking about. When we talk about our government schools, they give our kids back to us at 18. They took them at 5. Now they want them at 3, and they say that they've got to study all this stuff, right? They basically have taken our schools and tried to make them into training programs for jobs. As a matter of fact, Common Core refers to our children as or refers to businesses as the end users, the END, the end users. They're the end users, says Common Core. Our children are not friggin' resources for end users. Our children are the end users. They are a resource unto themselves, because the most important thing about liberty, and I'll tell you how it's distinguished from freedom, is that we own ourselves. Ultimately, God owns us, but self-ownership, a property in our person, as John Locke called it, is the most important thing. No man has the right to lord over another man, because we have a property in our person. We have self-ownership. And I don't give a flip how many of them band together and cast their votes. Their votes don't mean jack when it comes to our liberty, because our liberty is not up for vote. Our liberty is not up for vote. In fact, elections ought not be this important every 2 years. If they were bound down from mischief by the limits placed upon them by the chains in this Constitution, we wouldn't be doing this. But they treat the Constitution the same way high school football teams treat that paper that they pull across the field, right? The cheerleaders are pulling the paper. Now it's the Republicans on one side, on the other side, they're pulling the Constitution, right? And you hear this rumbling coming through, and through the paper runs the football team. Well, that's like Obama and the current Congress. They're running through the Constitution. It's just an antiquated parchment, unless you and I defend it with all we have every day. And if we did, if there were 30 million of us here every day, right? And I might see, Elisha, my deal was, I wasn't really going to get started today until we had 30 million viewers, or you. I mean, one or the other. I said, I'm just going to linger. Man, I've been talking about this. The gift that I got from Miss Sarah Moon, which is unbelievable, man. Look at this thing. I mean, it's even got a little toothpick in here. You know, it's got tweezers. You know, old dad now, since I'm older. You never know what I might have to pull off myself. I notice things grow on me the older I get. Anyway, this is awesome though. Look at, I even have this. Oh man, I'm so excited about this thing right here. Look at this part here. Boom. And it works, man. Look at this. You can even hear it. God, I love this thing. So anyway, man, I was just lingering here until you arrived, or until we got 30 million Americans here, because that's about what I think it's going to take for us to restore this republic. All right, the difference between liberty and freedom. And I borrow this from Chris Ann Hall, by the way. Chris Ann Hall is where I get this. Miss Sarah Moon is she came with jokes today. If you're on Periscope, and if you're not on Periscope, why not? Goodness gracious, you can see everybody's comments and be part of the cool kids, right? Isn't this like being part of? I've always wanted to be part of the cool kids, although I never particularly found their conversations that interesting. I always thought we were cooler, and that's what I mean, by the way, when I say that Democrats and Republicans, let's just say the political insiders, they are wrong and we are right. We are cool and they are not. And we need to start acting like that. We need to start telling these guys, what the hell's wrong with you? Don't you think we do? When you get these people acting like they're so cool, they're not cool. They're a bunch of jokers. They are. You don't think Barack Obama's a joker? This guy acts like he's, we are the cool kids. I'm telling you, they've created a caricature of who is essentially Urkel at 6 feet tall. Only Urkel was cooler, to be honest with you. And they make him look like he can play basketball and all this kind of stuff. He sucks at basketball. Anybody who plays basketball knows, by the way he shoots his stupid shot. He's awful. He's atrocious. All right, enough of that. But we need to look at these people who have these Bolshevik theories that we are extremists when they're the ones who are mailing baby body parts around? No, man, you're the crazy one. And you know what? Your obsession with Cecil the lion, I need you to understand this too. If we lift our gaze, and Gaze, it seems like every time I say we need to look forward, I've got to spell it because people are giggling, and we lift our gaze, and look forward. This Cecil thing, it is the beginning of changing the way we think about hunting. Because if they can change the way we think about hunting, then they can say we don't need rifles even for that. And if they can change the way we feel about hunting lions, they're soon going to change the way we feel about hunting for Bambi. And somebody's going to have to make the argument to me why it's okay to hunt Bambi but not Cecil. Somebody make that argument to me. Now, you might make the argument it's not okay to hunt either, which is what they're going to do. I'm ready to flip Congress. We actually have Republicans defending Planned Parenthood. EC, we had that. At the end of 2000, let's see, when was it? At the end of 2012, the omnibus, John Boehner's House of Representatives, they voted to fund Planned Parenthood, to fund ISIS, and to fund Obamacare in its entirety, all in that $1 trillion omnibus bill. They've already done that. Exactly right. So, okay, so the difference between liberty and freedom, Chris Ann Hall taught me this. Tell me if you buy it. Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. Who said that? Who said that? Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. I got to remember my question for the book, too. I'm getting ahead of myself here. That's not what you... Freedom's just another word for... Yes! Clay knows this. Christopherson wrote it, and Janis Joplin sang it. Oh, man, Clay. See, Clay's a musician. And I was talking about Chris Christopherson last week. Were you here? I don't think you were with us. Chris Christopherson's one of my favorite songwriters of all time. I thought somebody was going to say Janis Joplin said that. Yes, Janis sang it. Christopherson wrote that song, though. So Freedom, oh, man. I was talking about Chris Christopherson. I'm so excited Clay Musgrave's here. That is that's wonderful. That's wonderful stuff. I got so much to share with you and not enough time. But liberty, freedom is, we can do anything, and there are consequences, right? I'm free to drive my car into a crowd of people. Free to. I am free. Yes, he flew helicopters. Actually, he was a pilot too. He flew helicopters. And I'm free to even steal. I'm free to murder. Now, there are consequences that come along with it, right? There are consequences, right? We don't have the right to do it. We don't have the sanction to do it. There will be legal punishments and repercussions if we do it, but we are free to do it. What prevents us from doing it? Chris Ann Hall taught this, and I buy it. Liberty is freedom plus morality. Liberty is distinguishable from freedom. Liberty is freedom plus morality. Do you buy that? So what really prevents me from throwing a fit or pilfering a Snickers bar when I'm hungry, I'll rhyme in a minute if I'm allowed to. What really prevents me from doing that is not that I might get caught. It's the morality of it. It's what it turns us into, right? Now I want to share with you two quotes that are in this. One from Daniel Webster and one from John Adams. John Adams said that, well, Ben Franklin even, not the most religious guy in the world, right, Ben Franklin, but he did believe in God, and he did think that God wanted to be worshipped, and that the most pleasing thing we could do for our Creator was to be good to our fellow man, and that there would be an afterlife. I mean, Ben Franklin was an interesting dude. He said, only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. See that? As nations become corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters. And that's kind of what we're seeing now, isn't it? Only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters. And John Adams said, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It's wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Now, I think that we have to remember, though, that they also created a government that did not punish us for vice. Government is not there to punish us from vice. It's there to punish us from crimes with victims. Real criminal acts, not vice, criminal acts. And Daniel Webster, this is the last one I'll read, but I hope you're enjoying this. It's really good stuff. Patrick says, just like Daffy Duck, Obama says, consequences, smonsequences. He looks like Daffy too. Now, here's one of my favorite quotes by Daniel Webster, and then I'll put the Constitution down. I hope I'm not boring you with these quotes. I'll get back to some serious politics here in a minute. We'll talk about the horse race and the president and Trump, and we'll talk about all that stuff in a minute. But listen to this. Daniel Webster said, it is hardly too strong to say that the Constitution was made to guard the people against the dangers of good intentions. There are men in all ages who mean to govern well, but they mean to govern. They promise to be kind masters, but they mean to be masters. They think there need be but little restraint upon themselves. The love of power may sink too deep in their own hearts. The love of power may sink too deep in their own hearts. People get pretty full of themselves, don't they? But I want to share this with you one more time. Daniel Webster, if you want to look it up, and you'll have it. It is hardly too strong to say that this Constitution was made to guard the people against the dangers of good intentions. That's worth circling, isn't it? Who else warned us about that? A Christian writer. Who's the Christian writer that warned us against this? You're so welcome, Elisha. C.S. Lewis warned us against the dangers of good intentions, too. The frat from University of Florida was cleared from targeting vets. Cope should apologize. Very interesting. We've got some very fascinating local stories that we're going to have to bring to, because, again, they are springboards for all across the country. But listen to this. There are men in all ages who mean to govern well, but they mean to govern. They promise to be kind masters, but they mean to be masters. Here's what C.S. Lewis said about this. I don't normally do the quote back-to-back-to-back thing. So, but I'm on a bit of a roll here, and I really want to share this with you before I give away a book. I'm going to give away a book with a trivia question in just a moment, but I want to give you this quote. C.S. Lewis is who said what I'm looking for here. And it has to do with torment us. All right, let's see if I can find it. Oh, I found it. Look at this. You ready for the C.S. Lewis quote? And this really warns us against government passing lots of laws because it wants to take care of us, right? Here we go. Listen to this. Oh, this is good stuff. C.S. Lewis said, of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. Okay, you ready for this? Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep. His cupidity may at some point be satiated. But those who torment us for our own good will do so without end because they do it with the approval of their own conscience. Is that not the greatest? Is that amazing? It would be better, less tyrannical to live under the robber baron's cruelty than under the omnipotent moral busybodies who always tell us they have to pass this law or that law for our own good because we can't be trusted because we're naughty little boys and girls, right? Drinking beer on the beach. Can you believe the things we do? Sean Hannity, 3 hours a day. We need to crack down on the drinking on the beach. Sean Hannity, who doesn't understand that conservatives should not be doing these things with the approval of their own conscience. They'll torment us without end if it's for our own good, right? These people think that they are doing good things. I'll tell you, when I get the impersonations down, boy, this show's we'll get the 30 million, but I gotta, isn't that deep? One more time. Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep. His cupidity may at some point be satiated or satisfied. But those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own conscience. These people, they really think they not only, I mean, God Almighty doesn't do that. But even evil will claim morality to justify atrocities. Yeah. What do they say? The devil can quote scripture for his own good. Glory says, think about balancing that with go and tell. I mean, we cannot confuse government with morality. I mean, we just, and that's the problem, is if we want, see, the left thinks, here's the biggest difference, I think, between the left and conservatives, okay? Traditionally, I can't say it anymore about Republicans and Democrats, but the left, and it really, the French Revolution was the great example of this. You know, Maximilien Robespierre, who is the predecessor to Barack Obama. Maximilien Robespierre and the French Revolution, they thought they could use government to perfect human morality, to make us better people. And if it took the guillotine, then so be it. It's the guillotine. But we're going to make you better by the floggings will continue until morality improves type of thing, right? Well, that's what the left thinks government can do. They think they can bring heaven to earth. Conservatives understand that whenever that happens, we usually get hell on earth, is what we usually get. The path to, what is it? The path to hell is often paved with good intentions, said C.S. Lewis. The path to hell is often paved with good intentions. Government is not going to make us better people. Government cannot undo what God did. God created us. In Genesis, it says, God himself said in Genesis how does it go? The man's inclination to evil, man's inclination to destruction, depending on how it's interpreted. Man's inclination to evil is, how does it go? Man's inclination to evil basically comes from his youth. He's born with it. We're born with it. There is that little yearning, that little inclination to be destructive or evil. And the only thing that stops us from doing that, in my opinion, is not government, not the bureaucrats or the politicians, but it is good values. It is good values. That's the only thing that can prevent us from doing that, that can make us better people. Would you agree with that? And good values come from what? Exactly. Not government. And if you take a look at, I make this argument too, by the way. I normally don't get so, I'll get philosophical, but I normally don't get I hope you don't mind, because I'm not a biblical scholar by any means. I'm not even the most religious guy in the world, if you'll forgive me. But I do believe with all my heart, as Benjamin Franklin did, in our Creator and in ethical monotheism, that God sets the rules and he expects us to live by them, and it pleases him for us to fight evil and to do good, and that he should be worshipped, and that there is wrong, and we ought to call it wrong, and it's wrong because he said it's wrong. So what was I going to share with you? I was going to share, first of all, I need to share a book with you. I'm going to give away a book. Oh, darn, I was going to share something with you about values. I think it was about values and about how Oh, I remember. I'm going to tell you why I think God loves us and government does not. Tell me if you agree with this, Elisha and Glory and Jan and all of you. Tell me if you agree with this. God loves us, government does not. And one way that we can know that is because God gives us free choice. God gives us free will. He tells us what's right and wrong, and then he lets us he lets us act on it. Government tells us what's right and wrong. God Almighty will not strike us dead with a lightning bolt if we gamble or whatever it is you think is wrong. If you steal even, if you go get a prostitute, God will not strike you with a lightning bolt. But the government will. You think I'm kidding? You drive down there on 15th Street, down right over there by heading over you know where I'm talking about, and you go into one of those little motels with one of those broads walking up and down in the gold pants that's probably a cop. You try that and see if God strikes you down or if the government strikes you down. If you don't buy my theory, I invite you to test my theory, okay? So God Almighty will not strike you down for choosing the wrong action, but God will. Or do. But God will, but the government will. So here's the rest of my theory. This shows that God loves us and government does not. Elisha says, I think love comes with grace. Government does not know grace. Just ask the IRS. Amen, Elisha. And here's the rest of it. In order for us to love something, we need the opportunity to be proud of it, right? Think of our kids. It's probably a great example. If we parent the way they are in I forget the country where they'll cane you for spitting gum on the sidewalk, right? They'll tell you you do not have the chance to be bad, kind of like in America today with the pre-crime effort, right? Before you do anything, Singapore, thank you. In Singapore, boy, you don't have a chance to be bad. It is all about obedience, right? You talk about pre-crime, boy. First they spit gum on the streets and then they're stealing. So, pow! If you spit gum on the sidewalk, man, they'll cane your ass. It's kind of like Panama City Beach. First it starts with scooters, and then pretty soon they're drinking a beer on the beach. And then, bang, straight to gang rape, boy. It's straight to gang rape. That's what Sean Hannity said, and that's what some of these other guys are saying. So now they've banned scooters, and we can't have a beer on the beach in the month of March because it goes straight from that to gang rape, they said. It's like Singapore. Why God loves us, but government does not. See, if you're going to love something, think about a relationship that you're in. If you're in a relationship, do you want somebody who's obedient to you because they fear you, like a Singapore resident? Or do you think you would love somebody more who has the chance to be good or bad, but continually chooses to be good because their value system says so, because they want to be good, because they want to make you proud of them the way we want to make God proud of us? Part of the reason that we stand against this tyranny and encroachment from government is the question that I always ask: why did God make you you? Why did he give you the gift that he gave you? Have you discovered the gift that he gave you? And what are you doing with the gift that he gave you? I think these are two questions that will be asked at some point. Did you find the gift I gave you? What'd you do with it? Now, it's the second question that's going to be harder to answer. What'd you do with the gift I gave you, Marco Rubio? What did you do with the gift I gave you, Donald Trump, Barack Obama? Now, I was told by somebody that these aren't the questions that will be asked when you. Somebody told me that I was wrong, and I said, "Well, I was sitting in my favorite saloon, and I said, well, tell me where I'm wrong." And he said to me, when you go to heaven." Now, I like the way that starts out. When you go to heaven, he said, there are two questions that are going to be asked right off the top. The first one's going to be, what are you doing here? And the second one's going to be, where's so-and-so? He was always in the right house. Those might be. And I said, you know what? You might be right. You might actually be right. I hope you are right. What are you doing here? And where's so-and-so? I think he was right, this guy at my favorite saloon. He was wrong. Well, we got to at least have a good sense of humor about it, don't we? Sometimes. I mean, sometimes. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us. We finally got Elisha Cruz here, so I could get started. It was just about a half-hour show. Thanks for lingering with me for the first 90 minutes until we either got 30 million people or Elisha, the Black Courage, at I Am Cruz. Please make sure you follow him if you're not already on Periscope and on Twitter, if you want to keep up with somebody who always, always is championing liberty and the truth, or doing the very best he can, because none of us have the monopoly on truth. And that's one of the first things I think we should realize. And that's why I always welcome dissenting opinions on the show. And if there's one thing that I promise you I'm going to do, it's going to... I never did hear back from Freedom from Religion Foundation, by the way. I'll try them again today. That's one of the things I promise you that I'll do in order to make this show better, and that is to bring on dissenting points of views. I mean the very best, the smartest people who could ever disagree with me. Say, Bernie, you're wrong because of this, that, and the other, and I'll have to defend my position. And ideas will collide, and reason will prevail. I promise you I'll work on that to make this show better. Meanwhile, I hope that you'll go to our YouTube channel. It's up and running today. Please subscribe to that. I'm going to get that rolling every day live as well. It's a whole different angle. You can see the rest of the studio if you go to the YouTube channel. Thanks for fixing our photo. Yes, wonderful. That's right. YouTube channel, My Freedom Radio, one word. Please subscribe to that for me. And thank you so much for being with us on Periscope and, of course, on myfreedomradio.com. I'm Bernie Thompson, and I will see you tomorrow right here.
Bernie Thompson Show. Stay tuned. More of you and ahead.
The Bernie Thompson Show is brought to you by Gulf Imaging. Have your doctor refer you to the #1 diagnostic facility in Bay County for MRIs, CAT scans, and digital mammography. Gulf Imaging, OpenMRI.com.
Shot to the heart, and you're too